welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week, we continue our summer 2021, the thing I look for every year, the summer 2021 Satanic Panic series with the 1978 film Summer of Fear, aka Stranger in Our House, directed by none other than Wes Craven. This is Castle of Horror, episode 342. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castle Bridge Media. With me from Austin is Tony Sabaccio, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, currently published by Comixology. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the PEN America Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
I'm also thinking about my entire life before we record this podcast.
Drew Edwards likes to think about his entire life before he goes on a podcast. Man, we've been talking about Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, which I cannot come up with an excuse for us to cover on this show, but damn is it good. Good grief. So good. Anyway, and finally, also in Denver, color commentary from Julia Guzman of Guzman. I'm going to say that again. Color commentary from Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello, Julia.
Cut in half real bad, Dewey.
Okay. All right. Stranger in Our House is a 1978 American television horror film that is my favorite thing to bring to this podcast. A television horror film directed by Wes Craven, starring Linda Blair, Lee Purcell, Jeremy Slate, Jeff McCracken, and Jeff East, who actually had, at the same time as this movie, like literally like the biggest movie of the decade in 1978, if you don't count Star Wars. And so, yes, this film is based on the 1976 novel Summer of Fear by Lois Duncan. It premiered on NBC on Halloween, October 31st, 1978, and subsequently came out in theaters in Europe under the title Summer of Fear. And if you find it online or on Roku or on Tubi, Summer of Fear is the title that you'll find it under. So, all right, let's get opening thoughts. We rarely start with Julia, and that is an unfairness that I
And
want
amusingly,
to
every time you do start with me, you say something like that.
That's true. We probably actually start with you more than I think, but I feel like we don't. So this week we do. Let's start with Julia, then Tony, Drew, and then I'll go. Opening thoughts. Stranger in Our House.
Summer of Fear.
Yes.
As we watched it. Yes. So we have little Linda Blair, not so little, like 19 years old at this point. Horse rider extraordinaire, and her parents get a call that the sister of the mother has been killed in a car accident with her husband and the cleaning lady or whatever that they were taking home. And that starts this movie of this, that her cousin Julia is going to come live with them, but nobody remembers what she looks like. And Julia comes to stay with them, and it's all hell breaks loose, kind of literally. I think it's an interesting film. There's definitely a lot of things that annoyed me about it. I found myself getting really frustrated during this movie, partly on purpose. Like part of it was that they actually want you to be frustrated, and then part of it because I just thought things were dumb, like the whole thing with the brother of Linda Blair crushing out on his cousin. I was just like, how come nobody thinks this is weird? But anyway, so I don't know. I think I have mixed feelings about it. There's definitely some fun things about it, and some interesting character stuff, some interesting performances. But yeah, I don't know. There were just a lot of things that just kind of made me feel meh. And I felt like it kind of got to a slow start. So I don't know. So I've got, like I say, lukewarm feelings.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you very much. Tony, we return once again to 1970s TV horror. So first of all, if that's not your thing, I'm so sorry that I keep doing this to you. And
no, man, I've stated I dig on all this.
I love it.
All
right, what are your thoughts?
I kind of, there's a certain nostalgia for fade to blacks in the middle that, if if you were watching TV at the time, you knew that was the commercial signal, right? And fades up from black. Like you can always tell that. I don't know. There's a certain nostalgia there. And not just a TV movie, a Wes Craven TV movie.
Yes.
How rad is that? Yeah, I kind of mixed, but I think it's kind of fun. It has a lot of also there's just a way that TV movies kind of were filmed. It's hard to explain unless you watch enough of them, and then you kind of get that vibe. But yeah, I overall dig it. I totally see where Julia would be frustrated, and there are some frustrating parts. We're like, why did you say this at this time? And it's part of just how the story unfolds. And I totally get that. But I had a blast. It's fun to see a Wes Craven TV movie. That's kind of neat. And the cast is cool. Rain's been watching The Nanny, so all of a sudden I went, whoa, okay, that's Fran Drescher. That's cool.
Yeah,
because that's been on our TV a lot.
Baby Fran
lately
Drescher.
over the past.
And amusingly, Fran Drescher was starred with Charles Shaughnessy from Days of Our Lives, and McDonald Carey from Days of Our Lives is in this movie. So there's another connection. He's the occult what is it he's actually he's actually an anthropologist, but she calls him like the occult specialist or whatever, like the local expert.
Yeah, but since that's been going on, playing in our household off and on a lot over the past like 2 or 3 weeks, it was kind of just random. Hey, look, way before The Nanny. This is cool. I don't know. I dug it. I don't know if I would, watch it a ton more.
Right.
But I thought it was fun, and I don't know. Tubi started recommending other TV movies.
Oh, really?
I can't remember the name of the next one it recommended, but I just instantly put it in my queue because I knew I was going to come back to it. So that's kind of neat.
I wonder what
and I really
TV
need to get that
it's recommending.
TV horror movie book as well now. So, but yeah, I don't know. I dug it, but there could be some nostalgia goggles, and also I was just in the mood to, hey, this is kind of fun and bizarre.
Thank you very much. Okay, the TV horror movie book. Let's be sure and mention that in the endorsements, because I think you've brought it up before, but I've got to order that thing. Basically, I just need to read that. All right, Mr. Drew, what are your thoughts?
I don't always like TV movies. I don't hate them. I mean, there's certainly been a lot that I love Salem's Lot. I love Kolchak. I did not like Crowhaven Farm, which was the other one that we recently did, which this has some plot line similarities to. But I had a good time with this one. I thought this was fun. It's interesting how it is both very much a TV movie of its time, but it's also like unmistakably a Wes Craven movie with a lot of Wes Craven's tropes in it. And that was really interesting to me, seeing this slightly older Linda Blair in a more leading role was cool. It very much, even though it's a movie about witchcraft and Satanism and things like that, it very much feels like this could have easily been turned into a vampire movie at times, with the way the villain character is portrayed, and I'm sure we'll get more into that when we talk about it. But I thought this was a good time, and it was a Wes Craven movie I've never seen, because I thought I had actually seen every single Wes Craven movie. So this was kind of eye-opening that there was one out there that I had somehow missed on my many viewings of his other works. But this is cool. I had a good time with it.
That's fantastic. I definitely have seen this movie before for several reasons. I mean, number one, our older daughter, Sophia, is totally into Lois Duncan, who is the suspense novelist who wrote she constantly wrote suspense novels. And Summer of Fear was a really good one. This movie follows the plot of that book very closely, with a few changes that are just based on where they're filming and the skills of the actress Linda Blair, who was a horse enthusiast. So they wrote that into the movie, I think, quite well. But it followed the book super, super closely. But Lois Duncan, she also wrote I Know What You Did Last Summer, and Killing Mr. Tingle, and all these other just always there were suspense stories built around young adults. And honestly, actually, in literature, that's kind of a missing genre right now, because now what we call young adult tends to be a little younger than this. The whole notion of young adults who are like maybe just graduated high school or around there. Like Fran Drescher, her best friend, is presumably Linda Blair's age, and she's like a nurse, or at least a nurse's aide, whatever she is. So that so-called emerging adult story realm, they keep trying recently to make it into a marketing theme for books, and it keeps not really happening, which I think is a shame, because I think these are good main characters to have, because they're still living at home. There's still if we take Linda Blair's character seriously, she lives at home. She still has a tendency to be whiny. She lives with her parents, but on the other hand, she has a lot of freedom, and so I don't know. I like the world of this. And what Tony was saying, let's go ahead and get into this. We'll start with the theme and then just start working our way through. But the reason I like TV horror movies, especially of the 1970s, is nothing else looks like them. Nothing. 80s movies don't look like this. The 70s horror movies, like Satan's School for Girls and what have you, they all have that same, let's go into the Santa Monica Hills and film some cars. I mean, everything. So nothing sort of transports me into a different place, a different universe, the way these do. Or actually, I'll be more specific than this. It's not that nothing transports me, is that these films transport me to that imaginary place of America in the 1970s, exactly with the clarity that a Universal horror film transports me to the Universal world, or that Hammer transports me to the weird Hammerscape. So I see these and I just immediately love them. And again, by the way, I got a whole YouTube playlist. If y'all want to get into this, and I'm talking to the listener, I will post it again on our Facebook page. But I have an entire YouTube playlist of movies like this, where you can just play them all day on Saturday, and you too will feel like you're wandering around in the 1970s and should start wearing a scarf around your head. All right, so Julia, I didn't warn you that I was going to call on you for a plot point, but the movie starts with Linda Blair living her awesome life with her awesome boyfriend, and then into her life comes her cousin. Why? What?
Well, the movie
How does
starts,
Julia make her way into
the
her
movie
life?
actually starts with a car accident. This car full of explodium plunges off of a cliff, and then, like I say, her parents get the news that Julia is coming. Well, rather that their parents get the news that the sister and her husband have died, and this other random woman that they were taking back home. And so they say, we may be bringing Julia back with us. So then, sure enough, they come back, and Julia comes back with them. And she has been raised in Massachusetts and apparently goes to school there, but spends her summer in the Ozarks, and for some reason has decided that the Ozarks accent is the one she's going to be using.
Right.
This is what we're expected to what everybody's expected to believe anyway. And then so she's like, she can come stay with me, but immediately I'm sorry, I need to stop calling her Linda Blair. What's Linda Blair's character's name? It's
Rachel.
Oh my gosh, Rachel. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
nobody can remember. It's weird.
Rachel's horse Sundance hates this chick,
Right.
hates Julia, starts freaking out. So throughout the film, that's decided that first that the horse is going to go, that stay someplace else, even though she's still going to ride it, and because she rides it. And actually, Linda Blair was really fond of horses, which is why they end up using a horse instead of a dog.
Yeah, I want to stop you right there, because that gets us the basic concept of the beginning, and it gives us a chance to talk about these characters.
Mm-hmm.
So first, Linda Blair. Did y'all? I mean, I really liked Linda Blair in this movie. I mean, I like, first of all, I love seeing how comfortable this actress is around these horses. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, she just sort of, she just gets. I know that I shouldn't be impressed by that, but like everybody else, you could say, I need people who are good with horses. But in this case, you have a star, and she just breathes these horses, and it's amazing.
Why
You
is
were
it
going to say
wrong for you
something.
to be impressed with that?
I'm sorry.
Why is it wrong for you to be impressed with that?
Well, I mean, I guess there's nothing wrong with it, but it's I guess what would be wrong is that one might assume that I should just assume that Linda Blair could do anything, but no, I mean, it's really it's just the way that she just has her hands on these animals all the time. She has a complete command of them. You believe that she is this girl who's competing all the time with them. And so they take what's kind of just a minor plot point of the novel, which is that her like cocker spaniel is afraid of her new cousin, and they turn it into her 700-pound animal is afraid, is afraid of her cousin. And it's cool. This whole thing is neat.
The thing that I think is great about Linda Blair, other than the fact that, I mean, every time we do one of these Satanic Panic things, we name drop The Exorcist so many times. So now we have like a direct tie back to that movie. But she's very much like the prototypical Wes Craven heroine. Like she feels like part of the same lineage of Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street and Sydney from Scream. Like she's like that same sort of resourceful young girl that has to figure everything out on her own.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I loved this character. I had a good time watching her become junior occult detective on her own, because everything, her family fails her and her boyfriend fails her. Really the only person that comes through for her is the anthropologist character, and her cousin takes care of that toot sweet. It's
I mean, her nurse friend,
yes, that's true.
Drescher actually, pulls through.
That's true.
But for the most part, she's having to bootstrap her way through this alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that to me, like, again, that's very much like a Wes Craven thing. Like she just has so much of that DNA of characters that we see in his other movies. And
I had not thought about that, but that's a really, really good point. Yeah, she really seems at home here, and it makes me wistful that Linda Blair's career didn't go probably the way that we might have hoped, right? After this, she does some memorable stuff. There's a slasher film she's in that I can't remember now what it's called, where she's the final girl. I think that was Hell Night. Yeah. And of course the Avenging Angel movie, where she wields the crossbow. And then after, and now she's much more of an activist, an animal rights activist than actress now. But she's good here. It's really fun. While we're going through the cast, so Lee Purcell, and we'll give all the spoilers here because this is a spoiler show. So Lee Purcell probably is the one who has to do the most challenging role, and she plays her character like it just a series of gradual changes through, and it's I thought it was neat to watch. She begins with this total like hick accent that Julia was commenting on, and she's really demure, except for that from the very beginning, because it's a TV movie and you got to keep the plot moving along. From the very beginning, she's suspicious to Linda Blair, because she's a little too flirty in her own sort of, I don't know, eyes downcast way. She's a little too flirty with all the men.
Well, and the thing with the accent, she's like, why does she have this accent?
Why does she have this accent?
And her horse doesn't reacts to her like she's the Frank. She's
right.
she's Dracula, basically.
Yeah. Like she's Dracula, yes. And this movie also posits that she's not even. I mean, I'm going to call on, Drew or Tony, you can take this, but she's a monster basically. By the time the movie's done, she's literally. McDonald Carey says something like she's just coming into her powers now. She won't cast a reflection in a mirror. She's a monster. She's not.
Well, she won't. No, she won't show up. She won't show up in photographs. She does cast a reflection still, but she
yeah.
won't show up in a photograph. Yeah.
Yeah.
All of
Uh,
this stuff and we talked about this a little bit with Crowhaven Farm, but it
Mhm.
really reminds me of it here. All of this stuff reminds me of Carmilla.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well, can you explain? Go ahead and explain what the Carmilla plot is.
Well, the fact is that there's this girl that's, interjected into this family and starts kind of destroying the family unit
Yeah.
within. And then there's, of course, all these parallels to vampire mythology. You have the thing with the horse, you have the thing with the camera.
Yeah.
And, she's supposed to be a witch, but she is effectively, a vampire, even that she's like seducing all of the men and kind of
Right.
turning them into
Right.
their thralls. And
Yeah.
and she's not who she says she is, too, which is another Carmilla thing. She's not actually the cousin at all. She's this Ozarks
murderer.
backwoods witch who's named Sarah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like
Isn't that great?
I found all this stuff, even though there was a couple of things about her. She's not very good at covering her tracks. I would
Right.
say this, like, and maybe it's because she's cocky. I don't know, but like the one part where she like burns, or not burns, but she marks Linda Blair's photograph to give her hives.
Yes.
Right.
She doesn't even hide the fact that she like broke the picture frame to
Right.
get to it. It's just like hanging out there, and
Well,
maybe
she also can't hide anything. Like no one would think to look in this drawer.
Right.
And maybe that could be part of her coming into her powers. But as we find out later, she is at least powerful enough to cause car wrecks and other things by the time we get to the end of it. But she is really bad at hiding anything. I mean, even she leaves like, well, I'll just burn this and leave it around, or this bag with this.
Either that or she just doesn't give a shit. I mean, where she's like literally.
That could also be it. But
she's gonna jack with Linda Blair, knowing that she's got everybody so wrapped around her finger that it's just going to infuriate Linda Blair that there's nothing that she can do about how they're all under her spell.
Yeah. She's flexing for sure if that's the case. Oh no, go ahead, find the who's gonna believe you? That's part of my deal. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. Goodness.
That's something. That's one way to do it.
I mean, the cool thing is this exploits your fears, right? Because we live a life where we try to be moral, and this is, and a good horror story will do this. You try to be moral, you try to reach out and help people. And so a big nightmare of ours that good horror movies often play on is, well, if you reach out and are good to people and offer things to strangers and all that stuff, sometimes it's not really you're helping your cousin. It's actually like an evil succubus,
Again, it's just not thinking about this. This sort of would have fit in our gaslighting retrospective as well.
Absolutely.
Because she's totally, anytime Linda Blair, sometimes it's Rachel's fault.
Yes.
Like, hey, don't mention this, don't play your hand.
Right.
But she kind of pushes all the buttons on purpose here and there.
Yeah.
Because she's cocky, like you're saying, but she does a lot of, oh no, especially at the beginning, like, I'm totally not that. Everything's cool.
Right. And it makes, she's very good at making Linda Blair look like the unreasonable one. There are many scenes in the first half, at least, where people are like, damn, Rachel, you're just coming off a little strong against your poor cousin whose parents just died. You're whining about the way she dresses and about her.
Yeah, I
her
think that's
hick
why
accent.
this movie frustrates me so much, is all the gaslighting, because movies with gaslighting really frustrate me.
But like I say, that plays on our fears that we will one day be innocent and people will be misunderstanding us and victimizing us, and we won't be able to communicate it. And I love stuff like that, because that's your big fear, right? You try to be a good person, and so you see a movie where that's happening and it's blowing up in the person's face. Lee Purcell, she starts out with the accent, and we get the impression that over the course of the montage that pushes the time period forward, that over the course of like a month in this quote unquote summer, which I guess it's the summer because nobody's going to school or anything. Over the course of that month, her accent goes away. and she starts dressing very nicely, and she steals Linda Blair's boyfriend. Just like, and,
Which, of
and
course, it totally reminded me of that Cheers thing with the French guy or the
oh
fake
yes,
French guy.
yes,
It's like,
yeah.
Woody, I'm going to steal your girlfriend.
Yeah, it's the second time we've seen that, right? Again, just like Drew was saying, this plot is very similar to Crowhaven Farm, where that girl's trouble, that girl that you let in your house, you know, and it makes me think maybe part of the audience is women, you know, where because there's this strong motif of, you know, an evil girl who can fool men is going to walk in and steal the people that you love. Yeah. She's really
Well,
good.
it doesn't help that also all the men just kind of fall in line. Like none of them
Oh,
are very
Jesus.
strong.
Can we
Like,
talk about
look, hey, we all got seduced or thralled or are petulant
yeah.
because we got neither of those. Or oops, heart attack, or you know, like
yeah.
all the guys are pretty damn useless. And
Yeah.
you know, that's part of the whole that's part of this genre, that's part of the way this story is told.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, her dad, I think, is the most disturbing one to me.
Well, yeah, geez. I sort of almost am a bit surprised that they got away with that on a TV movie. Not because there's like anything too explicit, but it just feels so kind of gross because of the age difference.
They're
well,
feeding.
Also, he doesn't know. He wouldn't know. I mean, part of it's that he's enthralled, but either way, he wouldn't know that that's not his relative. I guess.
Well, it's his
it's
his relative by marriage, so it's not an incest thing per se.
It's still,
but
I mean,
and
yeah. Either
anytime
way.
you're in a conversation where you got to go, well, it's not really incest. You are in trouble. This is.
Yeah,
you know,
no, don't be that. What's his face from the Transformers movie with the.
You're talking about Jerry Lee Lewis
detailing.
Well, and the thing that gets me is nobody even mentions it. Like it's not even it's as if they forgot that she was supposed to be the cousin.
Oh, no, well, now you're talking about Peter, the brother, who, by the way, I referenced this earlier. Peter is played by Jeff East. Jeff East played the young Clark Kent in Superman, and he was so good. I mean, he's really good in that role. You know, he considering it's thankless to be the young guy who gets replaced by Christopher Reeve, you know, after the first like 45 minutes of the movie, but he's good in that role. Anyway, here he plays a guy who
he's kind of wants to date this girl Julia that he believes to be his cousin.
Man.
And again, it's not quite the same as as what you're talking about, but yeah, it's again the idea that you're not really supposed to date your first cousin, but yet nobody even mentions that as a thing.
Yeah. Well, not only
she's
that,
from the
Ozarks,
like,
hey,
you
so
know,
you like
maybe
her,
it
right?
just runs in the family.
There you go.
I don't know, man. What were you gonna say, Tony? I'm sorry. Go.
No, it's not only that, but then people are like, "Hey, so you know, she's cute, right?"
Yeah,
like,
what the hell?
That's kind of what starts it. It's like, what?
Yeah, because
I was confused
Linda
by
Blair
that because I was like, "Wait, that is your brother." Wait,
yeah,
did I hear that right? And then yeah,
so much so that you can miss that this guy that lives with him and is Linda Blair's brother. I mean, because there's so much like weird, like, hey, why don't you hang out with Julia? She's real cute, without any sort of like, no, man, that's gross. She's my cousin. It's just nothing. And you know, and then when she runs off, when Lee Purcell runs off with Blair's boyfriend, Jeff East is pissed off.
He's all jealous. Well, but the thing is, it's almost like, except for the fact that there's no line about this, it's almost like he's not really the blood brother, because it's always, this is my cousin Julia, says Rachel.
Yeah.
But he never says that. But he's her brother. So I'm like, why is that not your cousin also? Anyway, it's silly. It was a thing that kept bugging me, and like I'm just like, I don't know. I should just let it go.
It's just a script problem. It is really literally, it's missing some lines that we could use. Because I don't remember this from the book at all.
Because even the girl, even Rachel goes, hey, so I have a date with Mike tonight. Can you entertain Julia? And he goes, I'm not going to hang out with a cousin I don't even know. So he says cousin, and then she goes, she's really pretty. And I'm like, dude, he just said that she's his cousin. Like,
I mean, you can have a crush on your cousin.
No, but she's setting it up like, come on, you should want to hang out with this
ding,
cousin.
ding, 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 ding,
yeah,
ding,
exactly.
ding.
No, I know. And I mean, at least there could have been a line like, well, why don't you, hang out with your friends and her? I mean, she's really pretty. That would be like, maybe
one of them will
friends would like her, but no.
Well, we don't. the lines you're missing, Jason, that you said, hey, we're missing some lines, were the ones that were cut where we find out that he's not even really
Yeah.
kin. He's their adopted brother.
Exactly.
And
Right.
That would have been
his
fine.
parents died when a satanic witch killed them in a skidoo accident.
Right.
Like that's what we were missing.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Or a tragic roller coaster.
You know, this could be like
derailing.
2 hours longer. I really would like to see Jeff East. Like, they should double date. Jeff East should be with Fran Drescher. I mean, there's room here to breathe this story a little more. But that's the other thing that I enjoy about TV movies is that they're so damn compact that there's just no time to do this stuff, which honestly, in a way, sometimes I like that more because it gives me a chance to just imagine all of these other storylines that are spinning off that you don't have time for.
Well, that's what we talked about last time was, this is a pop, I don't think I'm off to say this is definitely hey, what can we sell ads for?
Yes.
What kind of things can we do to sell ads for? We'll get the right people together. We'll get a bunch of people who are coming up in TV or have been in movies. And so we want to capitalize on that because, hey, look, they're also in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to stay for all the ads because we know them.
That's
and
right.
Then it all has to be compact because it's going to be an hour and a half because you want 30 minutes worth of ads.
Yeah.
And
boy, that's amazing.
All the stuff that you have to do to fit your movie into that, kind of spot is fascinating. There's a craft to that that's not the same as theatrical craft in the same manner.
Yeah.
So, and you got to, plan all of your, a good TV movie also kind of plans its cliffhangers around the story beats where commercials are going to happen and all of that. Like that's a different way of thinking. So seeing something that's kind of fun and enjoyable within all of that, that's part of my kind of nostalgia and the way I look at these now, which is definitely not anything I thought of when I was growing up. It was just, oh, look, movies on TV. That's great. Because everything else was a series or, some one-off show. So, when you're young enough, look, a whole movie. And it's not at the movies. Like, that's impressive to, when you're of a certain age.
But your point is so well taken, though, that now what can impress us is look at the skill. It's like a person concocting a sonnet. Has to be a certain number of lines, has to be a certain number of syllables, that it has to fit this and that. And the true artist is going to be kind of like pushing the envelope and yet not making you aware that he's pushing the envelope, or at least not making the standards and practices guys aware.
Right.
Like Drew was pointing out with this ostensibly teenager feeding strawberries to a married man, in the middle of the night.
And I know he's kind of supposed to be entranced, but there's also like the whole scene where she's trying on his wife's lingerie and he seems completely okay.
Oh yeah.
She even says like, oh, should I wait for this?
Ugh.
And she's like, oh no, he's like, oh no, she'll be gone soon enough.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's good melodrama, man. That's pretty great. So yeah. Anyway, I really, and then of course by the time Lee Purcell has revealed herself, she makes a complete transformation again into like this glowing-eyed, hair-teased witch, where she literally looks like a monster version of herself, which is pretty incredible. I thought that was great, but I don't want to get into that finale yet. Because we should make our way through a little bit and see if there's anything in the plot that we need to tease out. So yeah, at first Linda Blair is the only one who suspects that there's something going wrong. Lee Purcell, the very first thing that she does is steal her boyfriend and start making eyes at the dad. And so Linda Blair starts investigating and turns for help to MacDonald Carey. MacDonald Carey, by the way, as Julia was fond of pointing out, was one of the stars of Days of Our Lives from way back.
The patriarch, yeah.
Yes, and I'll bet you even today you'll still hear they use his bumper at the beginning, because he was the one who
like
read
sands through the hourglass. So are the days of our lives.
That's right. Yeah. Gives you chills. He also played the dad of Gidget. I just want to point out, because I'm a Gidget freak, he played the dad of Gidget, and Gidget gets married. So that was 1972. So yeah, as Drew points out, Linda Blair makes a tactical error, which is that she's been consulting with McDonald Carey to find out, listen, I think witchcraft might be involved here. And the tactical error is that she tells Lee Purcell, well, listen, I think you're a bad person, and I'm consulting with the local occult expert in town, and that
Oh yeah, well she's. I mean, the problem with that. It was frustrating. That was the thing that frustrated me, and it's all plot stuff. Like this is being nitpicky, but the part that just kind of was like was she's been outwitted several times.
Yeah.
She's gotten blemishes where she couldn't go out
to the dance.
Yeah.
And the dress.
Yeah.
But before we move on with McDonald Carey, Julia, can you explain to me the plot point of this damn dress?
So she has a dress, Rachel does, that she puts on, and immediately both Julia and the dad, who Julia is like giving a shoulder massage to creepily, they both are like, that's a piece of shit, I mean, basically like that dress. And so he's like, well, can't you return it or whatever? Where did you get it? And she's like, no, I made it. She's like, I made it, and it's super like shapeless and whatever. It's just not that good looking a dress. And so then later on, when Julia claims to have spilled some nail polish on her dress and wants to go to this dance that Rachel can't go to because she's suddenly broken out into magic hives. So Julia puts on, she's like, the mother says, why don't you wear that dress that Rachel made? And she puts it on, and suddenly it's like a gorgeous, perfectly form-fitting dress, except since we didn't get a line about how either the mother or Julia knew how to sew, it must be magic fitting. Like she must have used witchcraft to make it fit her.
It's witchcraft.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
I guess if she can wreck cars, she can make dresses fit.
Some Cinderella stuff going on. Magic, magic glamour kind of stuff, I guess. Like, make me beautiful. The dress just fits.
Exactly. Just like, like Bewitched or Genie. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is, in Tony's words, it's a flex, because also it's just like, not only do you have hives and have to stay home so that, I'm going to go to this party and your brother is going to, and your boyfriend is going to take me, but I'm going to wear the dress that you...
Oh, not just that, Jason.
Yeah.
Her dad has gone, that dress? Ew. And then...
Right?
And then
now he's
everyone...
like, you're super hot in this dress, yeah.
Yeah, everyone...
Well, and it's the first time
It's
the first time that her reflection, it's the time her reflection disappears from the mirror, and only Rachel notices. So you start to get all the witchy stuff at once at that point.
Right, but everybody in the family goes, yeah, that dress looks better on her. Sorry. And she's supposed to just stay home with like horrible hives.
Yeah, and the brother goes, I want her to come to this party, but I'm in the band, so she can't be my +1, so can't your boyfriend take her? And then brother comes back home by himself and goes, yeah, your boyfriend and Julia took off after the intermission. They like couldn't keep their eyes and hands off each other, and he wouldn't let anybody else talk to her. So I was like, oh crap. I mean, it's just horrible. The horrible, worst, terrible, horrible, no good, very bad night for poor Rachel.
Yes. And those things at the time, when you're that age, are the most important things ever. I still can't believe she even talks to Mike after that. Like, there's whole scenes where they're like arguing, and
right.
And he's
where
like,
the cast
continues. Her answer should have been, hell yeah, you are. Get the hell out of my, get away altogether. I'm just sorry, and I mean, I couldn't really help it. And we know that that's true because of witchcraft.
True. Good point.
But still, damn.
Although he doesn't seem quite as mesmerized as the dad does.
Oh yeah,
no,
well, there's a lot of hormones involved.
No, he does have the line, Drew, where he's like, she's like, oh, he says, we just immediately had this connection that I've never experienced, or whatever he says, and then she's like, well, like with like you and me, no, completely different. So there is something.
Oh no, I think he has been zapped somehow. I don't like the actor plays plays like the actor playing the dad, like he plays it very
alleges
much
that he doesn't
like
even
a guy.
remember what happened, which I think is
Right.
bullshit. but
Well,
He
whatever.
plays it very much like a
Oh.
guy in a trance, whereas like the boyfriend, it seems like his
Just fell in love,
perceptions his perception's been altered, but he's not aware of it at all. Like he still seems like a pretty normal guy. He doesn't seem weird or anything.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, agree
Maybe
with
it
you,
takes
Julia, when
more-
we get to the end. That whole shtick.
Maybe it takes more trance magic if the guy is old and married than it does if he's young and horny.
Yeah. Well, no, I was about to say that. For Mike,
Yeah.
it's like, and she made me feel like nothing like you felt, especially in some places
Yeah.
that guys my
Golly.
age feel. But yeah, when we get to the end, Julia, those lines that you mentioned, man. that was one of the other things, is like the magic wrap up. But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Well-
but the part with the doctor that we were originally talking about, she's seen all this stuff happen.
Yeah.
And she keeps not being able to prove it. So the fact that all of that happens and then she still feels this need to go, oh yeah? Well, I know this occult guy and he's gonna bring you
I
down.
know.
It's
It
just
was like
no,
throwing
don't
stuff
do
at
the
the
thing.
TV.
That's the
That's
one
pretty
thing you
dumb.
have over her. Like you would
My
team
God.
up and take her out. Don't again. We're supposed to also
Basically,
believe
Linda
she's kind of
Blair's
younger
fault
and
that
not.
that guy has a stroke.
Or whatever happens to him, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tony. You're
No,
saying
but
that,
we're supposed to also, she's traumatized, she's being gaslit, all of that stuff leads into it. So it sort of makes sense in a character way of her going, oh yeah, well the thing you think you're so smart, I'm smarter. But it's still, if you were truly smart, you would shut the hell up,
right?
team up with the occult guy and bring her down. But instead she has to go, for real? I got your number. And Julia just goes, oh, I think I can solve this. and we get a stroke, heart attack kind of thing going on, which totally absolutely undermines everything Rachel's been working for, because luckily he is able to pass on some information, but that could have just as easily not happened, and then that would have been it, more or less.
Well, what's interesting to me though is what really turns it around. To be honest with you, I think that Julia, as presented in this movie, would have gotten away with whatever the hell it is that she wants to get away with. It's just that Julia herself, not Rachel, Julia overplays her own hand. Because what really turns the tide, you can convince me I'm wrong, but I believe what really turns the tide is that Mrs. Bryant, the mom, decides that she's had enough of this kid. And finally Rachel has an ally.
But not until that's not even it, because she was gonna get killed.
Well, that's true. She's gonna get killed.
No, she didn't know any of that.
No, what happens is this. She said, so Rachel says to her mom, look, Julia's bad, because the mom kind of, says
And
something.
the mom's like,
that
hell
makes her
yeah.
think that.
Yeah.
And then but she's like, I don't know. Don't say that. Don't even talk to me until you get this out of your head. In fact, because she had said, let's go, come with me on my business trip tomorrow. I'm going to go take pictures or something. And then she goes, yeah, Julia's coming too, because she insisted. So then, so Rachel tries to say, Mom, she's evil too. And the mom says, no, don't even talk to me, because you don't know what you're talking about. That's a terrible thing to say. So the mom is not her ally. And she tries to get her to develop, because she had gotten her to take pictures of Julia because the doctor had said she won't show up on film. So she's like, develop the film. She's like, no, go away. I don't have time for this shit. So then the mom leaves the next day without talking to either one of them, because Julia apparently wasn't feeling well, according to her. And so she actually never does get the mom to be her ally, because, like Tony was saying,
although
the mom's supposed to get into a car accident.
Yeah,
Huh?
you're right.
The mom does,
actually, that's true. Yeah, I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well,
No,
the
go
mom
ahead, Drew.
the
You were
mom
right.
saw that the dad and her were kind of flirting, but she tries to tell, but she blames that on the dad. She's like, you know what, Julia's a kid. She's doing whatever she's doing, but you need to be like not hanging out, spending time alone
flirting with an
just ignores
underage
her.
girl.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's also so enthralled that oddly, even after that, where she confronts him, he's like, you're way to be a woman.
Don't be ridiculous.
Basically.
Yeah.
Like, that's next. Well, she tries to force her daughter to model with her ex who cheated on her.
Yes.
And that's not the best parenting.
True.
Again, all of this is possibly because Julia's pulled it over, like spell wise, she's really pulled the wool over everybody's eyes.
Yeah.
And then when she finally goes, oh no, and is kind of smart enough to go, no, you should take these pictures. I bet Julia would totally do it. And she's super uncomfortable, which is also not, again, the best photography thing. Like, you have a model who's totally doesn't want to be there. No, it'll be fine. That's a little weird and creepy itself.
It is.
For a professional
she does seem
photographer
almost
to kind of
victimized
just force
by it.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, again, this is all plot stuff, right? It has to happen to forward. But the main thing is once her daughter says, no, develop the film. Come on. And because she's a witch, and you'll see, she doesn't even think, well, I did see her flirting with my husband.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then they were doing the whole thing with the map. Oh, show me. Oh, please, sir, show me where the map, like where we'll go, and all this just stop. Really?
I guess that
A
I was
map?
just so, Tony, I
And-
was so moved by her at least saying, yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to her being gone. I was so starved for anybody to be on Rachel's side that meant a lot to me. But you're right. I guess it really doesn't mean that much. You're right. You're totally right.
And
Yeah.
again, she's not convinced, because even after she's seen her husband, their interaction, she still, slaps her daughter and goes, how dare you talk to your flirty cousin that way? Or
At
even
best,
think
she's
she's a witch,
ineffectual.
even though she cheated on, she's now going out with your ex all the time at night.
Mhm.
Like at best, she's ineffectual. Even
Right.
she doesn't do anything with the knowledge that her husband's doing inappropriate things with her. And I really do think it ultimately boils down to Linda Blair's character being the one that's takes care of business. It is really cruel. I mean, I guess we can chalk up some of it to them being kind of enchanted, but it is really cruel the way the rest of the family really expects the Linda Blair character to just be okay with Julia and Mike going out with each other. Like, that would be really hard on a young girl like
Well,
that.
I know this sounds
Oh, yeah.
crazy, but it's almost just as bad that she also takes over her room. I mean,
Yeah,
your
well, the whole
room is
family-
everything to you when
the
you're a
whole
teenager.
family-
Yeah,
go move in
they
with
say,
your
well, if you
other
don't want to
brother.
be with her, then you should move in with your little brother. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's had a hard life. Her parents died. Why are you just? I mean, they do everything because it's TV movie. They do everything but say, "Why are you being such a bitch?"
Right.
Like, if it was a real movie, they would have just had that line, because that's what everybody's skirting around. Like, why are you a jerk?
Right.
This is your cousin who lost her family, and they do say something similar to that. They're like, she lost her parents. You can give up your room if you think that she's a witch who doesn't cast reflections, and you're trying to ruin her life because of that, despite the fact that she cheated on your boyfriend and has made your brother really unhappy because she didn't finish the prom with him, and he doesn't seem to care after that. So stop being negative, Nelly. Despite all these other things. Oh, and she looks like she may be cheating on, trying to seduce your dad. I don't know why you're being a jerk. And again, the answer is spells, right?
Also because of her, your horse had to go live somewhere else, and eventually ended up having to be killed because its leg was broken.
Well,
but you're being a bitch. Yep.
Yeah.
And she can't. I mean, to their credit, even if they weren't under a spell, that at least looked like it was just the horse. The horse was crazy, and then it broke its leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were still like, you shouldn't be upset about this. Like, it's her horse.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of dismissing of Rachel's emotional needs in this film. That's for sure.
For sure.
Pretty
Well,
much
the question
everybody,
is like how
except-
much of that is the witchcraft, and how much of that is just the people in her life are kind of shitty.
Well,
yeah,
it's
that's
the
hard
genre.
to tell. 'Cause we
It
come into
truly
it.
is. That's just
there.
the way these movies work. Any From Hell movie, which is what Julie and I call them, not to be confused with From Hell, the movie about Jack the Ripper, but any From Hell movie where you introduce some character who comes in and just turns your life topsy-turvy. there's always going to be all the good people around you are just going to think you're the bad guy, and you're not going to be able to dislodge them until the end, when, because everybody's just a symbol, there's a complete 180 and everybody hugs you and it's okay.
But
That's the way these work.
To the writer's credit, that's the way a lot of gaslighting works, and the truly insidious, horrible people who are real, actually can do that. And even, I had a friend who, or, in retrospect, not really a friend, who was really good at turning people kind of on each other. A person I knew in college who was really good at turning people on each other. And it wasn't until a long time later that I realized how all of that kind of machination worked. I was like, that was really terrible. So that's
amazing.
how truly horrible people do work. But it's made even more obvious because you have to fit it into like an hour and a half. But it does bear, the question is good on how much of this was just family stuff that she took advantage of, and how much like, oh man, was there ever like, she's so full of drama all the time? We don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know. That's a
Right?
good point. Huh. Yeah, no, the skill of a movie like this is that you don't even think about it until you're spending an hour and a half talking about it. It's like, we don't know about the emotional past of these characters. there's really nothing, that we're given. We just go with what they are right now, which generally I'm totally fine with, because we have enough clues, as to how they behave. But you're totally right. Maybe they've never really listened to her. Maybe she's never really needed to be listened to. She has her horses and everything's pretty great until into their lives comes this this succubus.
It is kind of weird, though, by the time we get to the end and figure out the reality of things, is that evidently they've never seen this cousin.
Yes.
And I guess, if you didn't go to family reunions and stuff, I guess it makes sense.
The mom says that she hasn't seen her sister in 10 years and that for whatever reason, they've never sent photos of the kid. And
the
but
10
I'm thinking
years thing to me is weird.
Yeah.
Say that again?
The 10 years thing to me is weird. Like, are they estranged? For some reason?
Seems like they must have been estranged.
Yeah.
And there's not time to get into why. But I was just telling Jason, I'm like, if they ever met the kid, they would at least know if she looked nothing like the other kid.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of weird.
Maybe it was a thing of like, yikes, the Ozarks. I don't know.
Right.
That could totally be it. I mean, I try not to go home or go back, even though it's, where I lived for a long time. I don't go back to Mississippi that often, especially that area. My family has a cool place out there, but in general, I never quite fit there.
Sure.
So I guess, it makes sense, I guess, and sort of, but it's also kind of strange. I don't know, I guess there's X amount of people in your family, some families are closer than others, but just that as, hey, we haven't seen her in long enough that we totally don't know what our niece looks like is a little strange.
Well,
it is.
The way I remember it in the novel is that they're odd, at least as everybody else, they're reclusive, they're kind of, pretty well off, but odd intellectuals and paranoids who don't do pictures. And, the dad is a researcher and author. His daughter's going to a boarding school in Massachusetts while he spends his time in the Ozarks, doing his folklore research and stuff. So, they're just odd people, and I can totally see, this couple in the Santa Monica Hills going, oh yeah, my oddball sister.
Right. Well, and that's part of the way that also another thing that Rachel clues into about Julia is that she I can't remember if she looks through a letter or something. Yeah, she sees a letter from a friend of Julia saying, that they miss her. And so then she calls this person and is like, oh, hey, I'm Julia's cousin. She's here with me. And then she's like, oh my gosh, we miss her. Is she going to come back to school? She was the president of the Glee Club and she sang all the time. And she's like, oh, she doesn't sing here. And then she's like, was she into witchcraft? She goes, you're not her cousin. She hangs up on her. So that's when you're kind of like, wait a minute.
Now, on the flip side, it could also be that Rachel's family move into California.
Yeah.
Could have been the part where the other side of the family was like, ugh, and then they moved to California.
Right.
Truth.
Oh, also in retrospect, I noticed this and I thought about it and then I didn't, and now I'm bringing it up. You know how also you tell that they're rich? They, at the time, 1978.
Yeah.
They have a push button phone.
No, they had a dial phone, because
But the
Jason
one
actually
she
made a point of saying
uses
that.
is a push button phone.
No, Julia. The dial
Oh.
phone was on Ghost of Mrs. Muir.
Oh, okay, never mind. I just remember you saying something recent, like in the last 2 days, about love those phones. Oh, okay, you're right. So it's push button phone, yeah.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
point.
And
Well, plus it's
you know,
just a big house.
Yeah.
well, yeah, but actual like
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
especially
Yeah.
like when I grew up, like we had a party line until the mid 80s, or so,
Oh,
you
for
know,
sure.
depending on where you live. But here, especially, that's yet another, it's one of those weird things that you don't think about unless you grew up in some part of this era. And I didn't even notice, it stuck with me. But then later on, I was like, hey, yeah, you know, if you saw that, you know, you live in an area that can even have that, because back then you had tone or pulse as far as the way you sent phone signals to emulate that. That whole thing with a push button or dial phone. And so they would have been rich. That would have been yet another indicator that they're well off.
They give us lots of
my
them, though,
mind.
when you think about it. Like, well, first of all, they have the line where he says, "Oh, my dad's a stockbroker," and she goes, "Oh, he must be pretty well off," and she just shrugs, like, "Yeah, yeah." I should point out, this house that they live in, if you Zillow it right now, is a $4 million home. When we get to the finale of this thing, and I'm not talking about the driving finale, I'm talking about the finale before that, where Rachel, in order to prove that her cousin is a bad guy, has got to develop these films. And so it's one of very few times in pop culture that I can think of where there is a hurried, tense, developed film scene.
I don't know. I feel like
And
there have been others like that, because there's oftentimes
Right.
you find a clue in the developing photograph as it shows up. But what's interesting here is
yeah,
that
No Way Out. No Way Out with
Yeah.
Kevin Costner
So
had
what's
that.
interesting here is she's been told by McDonald Carey, who's now in the hospital because of witchcraft stroke, that that she won't be show up with her. So then she convinced her mom to do the photo session. Now she's developing the film. She sees, in fact, that she's not in the pictures, but nobody ever gets to see that, which is another thing that frustrates the crap out of me, because
Right.
of course Julia attacks her, and then they have a big bitch fight, a slap scene, and then
Oh, but wait, hang on there for a second for that fight. I just want to point out that this fight is as exciting as you could possibly make it, because Wes Craven does something, I mean, it's not in the book. I'm not even sure it would have been in the screenplay, but look how amazing this is. She's in a dark room with red light, and there's a curtain, and the fight moves back and forth through the curtain.
between the red
Yeah,
room and the
yeah,
other
yeah.
room. Yeah, that is
Between-
nice. It's a really nice effect.
That was really
Absolutely.
Well,
cool.
I mean, Wes Craven's doing a lot of cool stuff. We poke at different places, but there's a lot of really good stuff going on throughout this whole thing.
Yeah.
The tragedy of the horse, and it keeps coming back and attacking
Yeah.
Julia. All of that stuff is really good. The hey, wait, I know something's going to happen. All the foreshadowing where she knows something's going to happen to her horse, or she, it has parts of her mane, so it's this hoodoo kind of thing that's going on. All of that's really great. I mean, Craven's doing all the Craven stuff here.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Her, friend having to sneak her into the hospital in order to talk to the professor, and hoping that he's even conscious, and how there's this really great stuff where Julia's like, oh no, I want to go to the hospital, and she has to go, wait, I have to go too, or else. Like, she knows that's going to be over. That's it for the professor.
That was actually a good tense scene. Yeah.
Well, and then
So she has to block
thankfully
and all
off
that stuff is cool.
thankfully off screen, apparently he tells the nurse, don't allow, because he knows that she's going to come back for him. So I guess off screen he tells the nurse, don't allow any visitors, because there's just a line from the mom that says, well, the professor won't allow, they're not allowing any more visitors for the next few days, so I'm going to go ahead and do this business trip. And so I'm like, well, that's interesting. I guess he must have said, I don't want anybody coming here, because he knows, because Julia has said she was going to go sit with him for the next day.
I thought it was because he got excited and they saw it on the monitor, and they were like,
no, but this is after Rachel gets after Fran Drescher sneaks Rachel in.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, this fight, I totally recommend this film mainly because I haven't seen it since, and you know how different directors will spot something and then they'll quote it in a later movie. I have not seen another movie that uses this bit with moving back and forth through a curtain into ostensibly black and white and then color and then black and white and then color. It's cool. That's just neat, and I'm somebody else needs to do that. Yeah. So anyway, it's almost immediately after that because now we're into the climax of the film, where Rachel locks her cousin, her fake cousin, her changeling cousin, into this basement room where the dark room is, so that she can run and bring the proof to I guess her parents, and and Julia just sort of hulks out. I mean, her eyes glow, and she summons her powers really for the first time to do some heavy duty telekinetic stuff, and blows the door off its hinges, which is great. It looks just like the exploding door in Suspiria. It just like goes boom.
Meanwhile, we realize that the dad is full on under the spell because he's like basically going to kill Rachel because rather than let Julia be harmed. That was super
Yeah.
creepy.
Yes. Holy mackerel. Yes. It's very weird, especially that afterwards when he proclaims that he doesn't remember anything. That's darn lucky for him because yeah.
Oh, because there's
that's
also been
horrible.
a scene where clearly they're having sex at this point because she's like, "Why don't you unzip me and I'll put on your wife's negligee?" And then she's
Yeah,
wearing the
which is
negligee.
Tony mentioned
Yeah.
that with the dress. Yeah.
Yeah.
I all of that. So yeah, the movie, I think, just to give this a nice ending, just simply says, "Oh yeah, I don't remember anything for like weeks now."
Right.
So
But and then we lead
How
to
convenient.
Yeah, exactly. Then we
Yeah.
lead though to the chase scene, which they're adds some excitement. So Mike
I
happens to
found
be
and that's the chase scene thing to me was about. I know they were trying to mirror the opening, but I feel like it's not a good ending for a horror film that your witch just gets kind of run off the road this is also the part where it feels the most like a TV movie to
Yes.
me, like
Right.
because this could have been like an episode of Chips or something.
Yes.
Like
it's shot the way, especially at this time. Again, if you don't watch enough of these movies, you may or may not get it. And
Yeah.
I don't want to disparage anybody who does or doesn't, or be wrong, but there's a way that chase scenes were shot in
Yes.
on TV that some of that carries over to film and back and forth. But there's just, if you watched enough movies from this, and maybe it was just like, hey, this is how we're going to do this in the 70s, and these are stunt teams we have and coordinators that work with those studios. That's probably really the rub. But the way that they're shot is kind of specific to TV in this time period. Which is interesting enough just to watch. It'd be cool to just watch a montage of all of these kind of things.
It really did feel like Barnaby Jones or Charlie's Angels.
I mean,
or
Chips.
something.
I think Drew nailed it with Chips in the way that some of that. But there were a lot of in other TV movies as well that relied on cars and them crashing into each other. And you have a lot of things that are factoring into that. Stunt teams. Who's with this studio, who's with that studio, who have you worked with before that the directors feel comfortable enough. All of that kind of factors into why we see these chase scenes the way they are.
And I'm not knocking that in of itself.
Sure.
Like if it was like a detective show or an action show, it probably wouldn't bother me as much. But for something that's been about, witchcraft and devil worship and all these sort of occult things, I guess I would have liked a more metaphysical solution to the problem here.
Right. Well, you also don't know if some executive somewhere or just the writer, whoever went, hey, chase scenes like this are really hot. Like, this is this is what you're competing with at least two other channels. You might be competing with some UHF stuff at the time, but you're really only competing. There's 3 major channels at this point, right?
Yeah.
So if this movie is opposite The Fall Guy, I don't even know if The Fall Guy was around at this point, but you get my point. Like if some actiony or Chips, for example, if this was opposite of that, you might have this scene because, hey, how are we going to compete? And that's how that worked. Like you're competing for ad revenue from another station.
Yeah.
That's another TV movie thing from this time period. So you might put in that because we heard, Nielsen ratings for this spiked whenever an action scene, a chase scene happens nowadays.
Got to have at least one car chase.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not saying that was a factor here, but these are the kinds. This kind of stuff is what.
It's a distinct possibility. I'm ready to go with your theory that there are ingredients that maybe somebody could argue have to be present.
Right. And I'm not saying that I think, Drew, I think your point is totally valid, but as I play it back out, as I maybe even overanalyze everything that was going on, these are all factors. And also none of this is stuff you think about as a kid, right? You're just here to watch the witch movie. And better if it has a car chase, maybe, because the Dukes of Hazzard had a car chase. So I'm jumping all over the map as far as years. I'm sure there's, listeners who are going, it wasn't out then. But these are in my child brain remembers all of those things like Fall Guy, Chips, Dukes of Hazzard.
I want to say the Fall Guy. So Chips, yes.
No, those were 80s.
Fall Guy was 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Fall
but
Guy
in my
a little bit later.
In your brain, all of that matches together. I'm just
maybe the $6 million man or something. Anyway, you've got all these
your point still.
things.
I want to point out, by the way, 2 really sweet things in this, and one is a 1970 red Dodge Charger. That the boyfriend has. It is that's a beautiful
That's a car, man.
And the other one, Lee Purcell is driving a 1962 baby blue Thunderbird, which I don't remember in the movie why she has this Thunderbird, but I don't even remember seeing her driving it before this scene.
No, she just grabs it from it's in there. I guess maybe that's her dad's car. I can't remember because the mom has gone in the mom's car.
Yes.
But like I said, to my point, I'm just to get myself out of hot water. I understand that none of those shows that I mentioned, other than maybe Chips, are around this time period. But in my brain, those are action shows. Yeah. That there are other action shows, and you would be competing with those.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I don't think you're wrong to use. I think your point's clear. I don't think anybody's going to.
But people get pedantic about that, and I just want to make sure. Yes, I understand years that things were made, but in my brain of in the way my brain works, all of those are in the same, have the feel of why you would want to put a car chase in a witch show.
Oh, for sure, yeah. But
it's a good car chase, really exciting.
It is really good,
and it does involve witchcraft because the brake, the pedal gets pushed down as long as she's in line of sight. And that's what's also fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, she makes the mother's car lose control. She makes their car lose control. But the problem is that she doesn't notice that the mother is she gets distracted, and so the mother is coming toward her, and she drives off the side of the cliff.
That is the witchcraft part. That's the only kind of counter to what you're talking about, Drew. And I think you are right, though. It is an odd choice, but we do have what eventually amounts to a bait and switch where Rachel sees herself possibly being run down by a car. Like she's on the road, she has the dream that is possibly a premonition. So when a car chase happens and when all that's happening, we, the viewer, go, oh no, is that going to be her mom that's doing that? Like once they start cutting back and forth, as well as they wouldn't kill her off, right? and we don't know that they won't. So there is that element of witchery. They just decided to add the vehicle part.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could have been much different had they not.
I would
gone
have preferred
that.
something spookier.
Mhm.
You know, like more. I don't know.
I think
But
that's fair.
and that, like I said, that's the part of this that makes it me feel very much like I am watching a TV
Absolutely.
movie, because I feel like that this is, for the most part, kind of a cut above what you think of TV movie. It's definitely a lot stronger than it's not quite the level of Kolchak or Salem's Lot, but it's definitely a cut above Crowhaven Farm. And what's interesting to me with this being a Wes Craven movie is that it's Craven in the earlier part of his career, when he actually generally was doing nastier. With the horror films he did were more like twisted than the stuff he did later, like even Nightmare on Elm Street, because it's yes, it's a slasher movie, but it's also kind of a monster movie. It doesn't quite have like the nastiness of like Last House on the Left or The Hills Have Eyes.
Absolutely correct.
And this, even though again it's very much a 70s TV movie, it does seem to have like his style of like for going forward. Like it has the elements that you start to see come into play in his films into in the 80s and then into the 90s with the Scream films.
Absolutely.
Also, it's noted that we introduced it as Summer of Fear / Stranger in Our House, but the original TV movie name, title is Stranger in Our House, which is very, very, very much a TV movie title.
That's a good point, because that's not even the name of the novel,
exactly,
right? Yeah.
It just feels like, oh yes, this is definitely. I don't know. There's an art to that too. That when you hear that, you go, "Oh, TV movie of the week" kind of thing. And Stranger in Our House fits all of that.
Yeah, it tells you what to think about in a way that Summer of Fear doesn't, because it tells you to think about our house, our upper middle class house in the nice California hills is being invaded by this stranger. That's so, you're right. that really does focus in on the same people who are going to be then buying soap. And you're totally right. It's a good point. I had never thought about what the meaning of changing that title was, because when you think about it, Summer of Fear could mean literally anything. It could be, it could be, like heat or something like that. So yeah, interesting. Lee Purcell goes over and there's a fiery wreck, and and everybody hugs and it's all great. But we have a stinger, and I'm so excited about this because we are at another house, and Julia, who appears at this other house?
Yeah,
wearing a rather
this
smart
lovely
pantsuit.
woman holding an adorable little girl, and she's greeting the new governess, which of course is effing Sarah, which is, we find out is her actual name, not Julia. But here she calls her something else. But yeah, she's like, "Oh, hi, I'm your new governess." I think she's doing an English accent, maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she's survived and is back. So apparently, the accident didn't scratch her at all. So she's actually quite a good, powerful witch, because she managed to get out of that. But at least the other family has been mostly spared, aside from the poor horse and the parents and the daughter. Well, actually, we find out Julia is dead then, somewhere. I guess in the accident. She was actually died in the accident, which they thought Sarah had died in. But so so aside from the parent, the uncle and aunt and real cousin, this family has been spared. And now this poor little girl is good. I actually hated that it was a little girl. I was like, why does it have to be a little girl involved? I wanted it to be, let it just be another like maid situation with adults. Like, why do they have to involve children? Anyway, that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, but also not before we have the mom almost fulfilling the prophecy. And why you wouldn't jump out of the way instead of holding your hand out. By the way, holding your hand out does not stop a huge car.
Well, you do. I mean, that's actually pretty realistic that you just freeze. Because, there's that whole freeze. What is it? Freeze, flee, or fuck, or whatever it is. Anyway, all the F's. But yeah, that's one of the reactions is just to freeze. Yeah.
But also, she takes Mike back, which is, again, man.
Yeah, that's weird.
I get it. Oh, he was on. Everybody just goes, "Oh, it sucked that all the men were under a spell." What can you do? Witches, right? And then, and the dad, Yeah, right, man. I mean, there's maybe they went to some counseling. I don't know, but the dad being like, witchery, right? Oh, that was so weird when I was totally just hounded on my niece by marriage, and she was wearing all your clothes, looking sexy. Phew, I didn't even know. I mean, I don't remember anything.
This whole summer, complete blur. Somehow he's been a stockbroker selling stocks for months.
Oh yeah, it's all a blur. Like he was able to do his stock, like he's not going to get in trouble for any of that. But I like really that. His wife is really like, witches, right? Again, like his whole and the way he just smiles, like I didn't remember anything. Certainly not. No, I mean I didn't. Totally was not hot. Niece doings that I was thinking about just now. I didn't remember any of that silky lingerie. I mean nothing. Like that. His whole demeanor and the way he's just smiling, like darn.
Well, he also looks like bargain basement Ed Begley Jr. to me.
Totally. But that whole part was like, and also, hey, Rachel, you can do better than Mike, the hormonal. Aw shucks.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Just.
This, by the way, the husband dude is played by Jeremy Slate, who apparently he had actually quite a career. He was in a lot of TV shows, and he was on One Life to Live at this time. This was like his period of being a soap star.
That's how you do it, right? I mean, that's why they're soap stars in these movies.
Right.
Hey, it fits. He's like, attractive stockbroker dad. Well, right. I like him in these other shows. Like now he's in a movie. I want to watch that movie. That's how all of that.
That's how it all works.
That's how you sell all of that. And more than likely a star on the network. Their show was on the same network as the movie. It was pretty rare that they would kind of cross over. At least I think. There could be somebody who goes, that happened all the time. But as far as I remember,
it looks like I may have spoken too soon. He slingshots off of this and right into One Life to Live, which he stays on for like 10 years.
Oh, that makes sense.
But yeah, before this, he was in True Grit. I don't remember what he played in True Grit, but he was in it. So, and there might be somebody listening going, "Come on, man, you don't remember him in True Grit?" So, if so, I apologize.
But the whole marketing in that was often, if you're our age, you know all of this, and you'll just go, way to state the obvious. But if you weren't into these movies at the time, a lot of times it was if you like them in this, wait till you see this TV movie.
Absolutely.
Not as smarmy as that, but that's the rub, right?
No, but absolutely. Yeah. He was also apparently a star on a show called The Aquanauts, which was like a diver adventure show with Ron Ely, who, for those who don't recall, was Tarzan. Man, right. What a great Tarzan he was.
It's also strange to think of how many shows there were, even with when you only had 3 networks.
Yeah.
When most people didn't have cable yet and you only had 3 networks.
Well, the thing that blows my mind, seriously, is that like that show lasted 1 season and there are 32 episodes, because back then a season had 32
Literally
episodes. That's crazy.
Like a season was a season.
Yes, right. I mean, if you think about it
now,
it was
named,
the show comes on Netflix, there will be 7 episodes a season. At that, so they were doing literally like 4 or 5 times that in a given season of a show. It's so you could have a 1-season show, 32 hours of that show. Well, whatever.
Anyway. Another thing that's kind of strange to think about, because it doesn't, now that we just have, hey, you can stream anything, is if you're talking to someone not of our generation, they may or may not remember that the summer, since who knows if you'll be watching TV or not, was just like this free-for-all of no one's watching Jack in the summer because school's not in and whatever. And so you just got this strange, there were summer shows that were only during the summer to try to hope that you weren't out, like all the kids weren't out doing stuff because they weren't in school, or that just it felt way looser.
Yeah, it was more Wild West in the summer for sure. Because in the
And
summer they would put shows that they were burning off. Like
right.
show didn't do well, so they canceled it, but they got 4 more episodes they never showed, so they'll burn that off and show it. There are summer replacement shows that sometimes would be a big hit and would become a regular show. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a summer replacement show.
Right.
And when it ended up running
And
for
that's
like
much later, but
11
just
years.
the way 70s, 80s especially, and that's
Yeah.
when I would go stay with my grandparents. But you could tell it was weird because there was just this different flavor.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain unless you watch enough stuff and realize these were all during the summer.
Yeah.
Because also that's they would end a lot of the usual ones, and then they would take the summer off.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah,
and
no more.
come-
Well,
you would
Julia
come
and I are
back
still
after the
dealing
summer.
with that. Yeah,
Right.
no more new episodes of whatever. So I guess.
But just the way that it just made me, all of this discussion made me think about that, or just weird one-off pilot movies, or like we don't have it, like everybody's off for the summer, all the actors and actresses aren't making, other than soap operas, because
Yeah.
those had to go all during the day. But nighttime television was definitely, here's a weird fantasy movie,
Yeah.
an event, and they would, the television event of things that we couldn't fit into a normal programming schedule when it wasn't the summer.
Do you know I can still hear the opening credit sound of like an ABC Sunday night movie? Oh man, I can or into the early 80s, the sound of an HBO movie coming on. That all those like musical logos.
And this whole discussion is either people nodding and going, "Oh yeah, you're right," and then other people of a different generation going, "Yeah, cool, old people. That sounds great, grandpas."
I'm glad you remember the moving logos before the Sunday night movie. Like I give
We do
a shit.
have
Right.
streaming now, so stop your nostalgia goggles
is
there,
super
grandpas.
My favorite thing is when people will post an entire old movie, but they'll keep the commercials in, because then you really feel like you're living it. Like we watched what was it? What we reviewed a movie and on this show, and the one that I watched was Commander USA's Groovy Movie version, and so you had like the ads off of USA. Anyway, all right, so we should wrap this up. I want to get our final thoughts about Summer of Fear, aka A Stranger in Our House. It was Julia, Tony, Drew, and then I'll go. Julia, if you haven't been put to sleep by listening to us talk about the moving logos of the ABC Sunday night movie, thank you for joining us for this. What are your closing thoughts about Summer of Fear?
I think that it's been a fun conversation. I did like I said, the performances. I do think that the Julia / Sarah character is very creepy, and there's some great effects of her powers and all that. Very interesting stuff. There are some great Wes Craven moments. I agree about the dark room and the other thing with the fight. So I think we've talked about what kind of where maybe it could have used a rewrite, but there's definitely some really good things to it. So I did enjoy watching it, and I think we've covered pretty well some of the issues and some of the really good points. But
Thank you.
Enjoyed the conversation.
Very good. Tony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. Like I said, seeing a Wes Craven movie, TV movie. That's Linda Blair. The whole cast has pretty decent chemistry. It's neat. As I've stated before, part of that possibly is nostalgia goggles, as well as talking through this, really dissecting TV movies, not just tropes, but why they're constructed that way, which I haven't thought as much about. I've had discussions with different people at different screenings, but never kind of in this depth of like, oh yeah, as an adult, these are the things that factored into these movies, as well as creating art and a compelling movie. Yeah, I liked it. I don't know if this is like, I'll just keep going back to it. But I enjoyed it, and I think it's got a lot of great bits, interesting stuff. There's a few, I wouldn't call them holes, but there's a few like we discussed most of the things, like, oh, why is this character doing this, or this doesn't make quite as much sense. And I go with Drew about it. It would have been interesting to have a more spooky ending, have it be supernatural all the way through. but I don't know. I guess something about the car chase thing just felt such of a time that I was able to overlook that while I was watching it. I enjoyed it, but it's not perfect, but it has all the things I kind of wanted and expected from this, so I wasn't surprised or I don't know. It just fit for me.
Perfect. Drew, what about you?
I had a good time with this. I really did. It's nice to have a whole a gap in my Wes Craven knowledge filled too, because I really did feel like I had seen all of his movies. I think this is an interesting flick. I'm kind of with Tony that I don't know that I would put it in my regular rotation or anything, but I think as an oddity, as a witchcraft movie from the time period, I think it's a good example of that. And it's just also interesting to see Wes Craven sort of developing the tropes that we will see repeated in his more famous movies later on. So I really did enjoy watching this.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Well, gosh, that leaves me, and you've already heard me just wax on rhapsodic about this. I'm actually most curious, since we watched this on Tubi, as to what other TV films Tubi is going to recommend to me. I should note for the listener, if you're planning on renting this movie and you haven't already, Tubi was the one that had the best sound. I sampled a couple different versions, and the Tubi one sounded pretty good. It's there's a recent Blu-ray release, and the Tubi version seems to be based off of that because it's from the same distributors. So that's what I'd recommend. So I heard some other versions, and the sound was cutting in and out in a really weird way that clearly had something just to do with how it was digitized and
Or get the Blu-ray if you can.
Or get the Blu-ray, because it has a Wes Craven commentary track that I have not yet heard, and I'd really love to hear.
Yeah, I would dig that. I might have to. Those are, again, I like that Shout Factory sometimes has commentary. Like you can stream some of the commentaries
on Shout Factory TV. Yeah.
I wish that they would do more of that, because I definitely would dig on hearing the commentary track.
Yeah, I agree. I want to hear more. I want to hear like his thoughts on working with Linda Blair and Fran Drescher and these folks. And gosh, it would be so great just to head back to the Santa Monica Hills and at that time. Cool. All right. That brings us to the end of Summer of Fear. Let's get our endorsements, like whatever you guys might be listening to, watching, want to bring people's attention to. Julia, do you have anything for us?
Well, obviously we went and saw Black Widow in the theater. It is also available on, I guess, Disney Plus. But I really enjoyed it. It's definitely flawed in a few spots, and it has it really is kind of video gamey in how many times Black Widow doesn't die when no other human would not die in that situation. But it's a really fun action film, and you don't have to have watched any other Marvel movies to enjoy it, because it's completely its own story about, it's just kind of a standalone story in between Civil War and Infinity War, of just Black Widow, and kind of shows her childhood and then her youth, and then what happens in those like 6 months after Civil War. So it's a really fun film.
It's probably worth endorsing Are You in the House Alone by Amanda Reyes, who knows a lot about TV movies and has written this compendium of 1964 to 1999 TV movies. She's spoken at AFS and all over the place, and in Austin. So I need to get this book because I don't have it somehow. I don't know why I don't own this book, because I've been meaning to get it. But Are You in the House Alone? A TV movie compendium, 1964 to 1999.
Sounds fantastic.
I need to get that book, because this has me jonesing for all of that, and she knows her stuff, and so it's worth picking up for your reference material books.
That book came out. I haven't read it yet. It came out in 2017, so it's like 4 years old, but it is, to this day, it's still the number 20. I'm looking science fiction, fantasy, and horror TV reference. That's really solid. That's really good ranking.
Yeah.
That's 4 years old.
mad that I don't have it. I don't know.
Well,
I'm
now
mad at
there's something for you
myself
to
for
look
not
forward to.
having bought it because I don't know why I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, because there's just so much cool TV movie stuff to look at and review in a book like that, as well as luckily now we also have YouTube in addition to nice streaming services that pay the creators of some
Absolutely.
sort, or at least distributors that do that.
Yeah.
So you can watch so much stuff that during this point in time you just had to hope it came back on again. If you missed it, too bad.
Blows my mind. It just blows my mind. Now you can watch Carl Weathers in the Bermuda Depths, and for years it was just impossible. It's amazing.
Or I'm sure somewhere you can find Aquanauts, which I didn't even know was a thing.
I didn't either,
till
but I got to
tonight.
get it now, boy.
32 episodes somewhere.
And let me tell you, stuff like that is actually where I periodically discover the edge of what the internet can do, because some of those things are just really hard to find. Ghost of Mrs. Muir is not streaming anywhere except for in bootleg. Aquanauts, I don't know. I haven't looked at it, but the fact that I've never heard of it before indicates to me this one might be hard. But that actually also, honestly, it's like the Sherlock Holmes theme just starts playing, and the game's afoot. We're going to find this damn thing. So yeah. True. What do you have for us?
So, I enjoyed the second. This is the most vanilla for the second week in a row. I feel like I'm giving the most vanilla horror endorsement because it's literally what everybody's talking about on Twitter. But I really did also have a good time with Fear Street Part 2, 1978.
Okay, what's Fear Street? Catch me up. I've been writing a book and paying no attention to anything.
It
what the hell
is
Fear Street?
3 movies that are being released on Netflix. They are adaptations of an R.L. Stine series from the 90s, but I am not familiar with it, so I could not tell you whether or not this is actually close to the book series at all, although I've seen people say that it's not. But what it is there's a through line story with all of these movies, but each one of them takes place in a separate decade, and they're done in the style of a different horror film of the particular time period well, I don't know what they're going to do with the third one because it's set in 1666, so I guess it'll be kind of a period piece horror movie. But the first one was 1994, and it was done in the style of 90s horror film. The second one is 1978, and it's got a late 80s, late 70s, early 80s kind of it looks very much like one of because it's set in a summer camp. It looks very much like one of the first 3 Friday the 13th movies.
Great.
It's not quite as perfect of a pastiche like the first one. Man, that really it felt like something that would have come out after Scream came out. Like they just nailed it. But this one isn't quite as perfect of a replication of a early slasher movie, but it's still a lot of fun, and it's got a lot of Easter eggs for people who are fans of horror movies from that time period, which I am. So I got a lot out of it. And, since I am a huge Friday the 13th fan, and it doesn't seem like we're going to be getting a new Friday the 13th movie anytime soon, this was probably the closest thing that I'm gonna get, and it hit the Friday the 13th sweet spot. I'm interested. The third part of the series comes out next week, and I will be interested to see if they can stick to landing, because so far it seems like not only myself but most horror fans are been very happy with this series so far. But traditionally Netflix isn't that great with the horror genre, especially endings. So I will be curious to see if they can nail, especially since they're going outside of the 20th century with the next setting. So I don't know if it's going to be like a Witchfinder General send up or something, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm having a good time with it. They're not perfect, but it's a sharp reminder to know that sometimes it's okay just to watch something to be entertained.
It
And
sounds
they
well. I mean, but if you're making it take place in the 70s and the 90s or whatever, or backwards from that, that's more than just that's definitely harder than you have to work. So I really
it's
appreciate
got
that.
a
I
lot of
can't wait to
art
check it out.
direction to it. I think you would at least appreciate.
It sounds like my
Even
kind of thing.
I
Yeah.
think you would at least appreciate the aesthetic, the aesthetic effort of it, if nothing else. Like they really they really are trying for something. So and it's the fact that it's not just one kind of horror movie. It's a lot of different kinds that they're riffing on is interesting to me. The other thing I've been getting into, I've been talking a lot about this on my Twitter, is I've been rewatching the 1990s Spider-Man cartoon on Disney Plus, because it's kind of the perfect thing to watch when I have like 20 minutes, like if I'm working and I need to just like kind of step away from the laptop and not look at a computer screen for a second. Like I can watch an episode of it and then go back to work relatively quickly. It doesn't take up as much time as like a modern television show.
Yeah.
And I kind of am loving it, even though it is hokey, but it's hokey in a way that I think people forget how soap opera-y Spider-Man comic books actually are.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think
man.
and the cartoon really hits that sweet spot for me. And I haven't watched it in several years. And it just, I don't know. It's been making me happy, and it's been making me think about the Spider-Man universe, which I haven't done in a while. And it's actually making me really, like if I were ever successful enough to work for Marvel, I really would love to write the Lizard. And I mean, not as like the antagonist of a Spider-Man story. I mean, like the protagonist of his own story. Because I just think the Lizard,
yeah, no,
like
as
the
an
Lizard
anti-hero mad scientist story. Yeah, that makes sense.
he is a fascinatingly layered character, and he's not even really a villain when you think about it. Like he's not like Doc Ock, like or Green Goblin. There isn't any deliberate malicious intent. He's an accident. He was just trying to grow himself a new arm, man. Like I love the Lizard, and he's in a lot of the episodes, and I don't know. I kind of love the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. Although if you don't like older animation, your mileage may vary, because it definitely looks of its time period. And I'm not knocking it. I like the way it looks, but I could see why, if there's somebody who's younger who grew up on something that looks a little more slick, they might not appreciate it the same way.
Thank you. Tony,
no
you had
problem.
something for us.
Oh yeah. So sorry to interject back in, but this TV movie nostalgia thing got me just fired up certain synapses. And if I don't think it's readily available as maybe a YouTube thing, but the thing I think about the most from this time period that my stepbrothers and I just loved, and it only lasts a little, the Aquanauts thing is what really prompted this. A movie called a series called A Man Called Sloan, which it is definitely of a time.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely trying to be James Bond. I think Moonraker style James Bond. Like there's more gadgets.
I've seen trailers
involved.
for this. I never watched it. Yeah.
So what's crazy though, and this confused the hell out of young Tony and his stepbrothers. They showed the series 79 to 80, and then waited to show the pilot, which had a different cast.
Oh my.
And if I remember, and it was called Death Ray 2000. If I remember, long before Hitman, this had Kung Fu nuns or Kung Fu women dressed as nuns in the beginning, if I remember correctly. But it's been a while. But all of that kind of, hey, you can only see this. None of it made sense. Like, why was he, wait, the movie, and then it's a different person. And you didn't understand any, like, as a kid, I didn't understand any of hey, this person can't be in the series, or any of that stuff, or what a pilot was. But even more baffling is they showed the pilot after the show had been canceled.
I remember something similar where when for some reason they played the Kathy Lee Crosby Wonder Woman on TV,
right.
and I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. But this Man Called Sloan, definitely of a time,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, and definitely Death Ray 2000.
Okay,
Just
that's a good tip.
I like something about it just hit all of those bits of me, wanting to watch that show. And then, it only lasts for like one season, gets canceled. But, James Bond was the coolest thing at the time. So the fact there was a sort of kind of James Bondy series on, all of that hit those buttons at the time, but I haven't really revisited anything but small bits of it. So if you can find it, I'm curious what everybody else who's listening, if you're old enough, what you thought about it, and if you're not, if it's any good now.
Try to make a note of that on
I
our
want to
page.
say that the Kung Fu Nun thing was kind of crazy, if I remember correctly, and it's got a death ray laser. So
Perfect.
I'm usually all about that. But A Man Called Sloan and Death Ray 2000.
Hang on, I have to connect back. I'm sorry, I lost my mic. Okay.
You sounded fine.
Yeah, it come unplugged. Okay, it's okay. I'll fix that. All right, thank you. And I'm gonna look for the Aquanauts and see if I can find it, because now I'm really I want to see a diving thriller adventure show. This has been so fun. Thank you guys. This has been a real blast. And I can't even remember now. Oh yeah, next week is going to be a movie that I have never seen, which is To the Devil a Daughter, a Christopher Lee Hammer film at the very, very tail end of the Hammer period. So that's going to be a blast. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Look for opportunities to practice kindness. Have a great week. Bye, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Night.